Think of the Cleavers, the Bradys, or, the Cunninghams. When you hear the word family, does an image of a perfectly manicured lawn, a wise breadwinning father, and a cheerful homemaker instantly pop into your head? For decades, post-war media basically drilled this incredibly tidy image right into our collective consciousness. But sociologically speaking, this whole idea of the traditional family is largely a manufactured illusion. Welcome to this explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today. Because today, we're going to completely dismantle that media-driven myth of the nuclear family. We're going to strip away the sitcom laugh tracks and rebuild our understanding from the ground up using rigorous sociological data. So let's just dive right in. Here's our academic roadmap for today. 1. The 1950s myth. 2. Whited-out realities. 3. Kinship as a social construct. 4. Ferguson's 3 core components. And 5. Changing structures. All right, starting with part 1, the 1950s nuclear family myth. So post-World War II America saw the rise of this highly specific, idealized image of the mid-century household, broadcast right into millions of living rooms. But as sociologist Stephanie Coontz famously pointed out, the experience of many families was literally whited out in the 1950s. The media actively erased the complex lived realities of minority, immigrant, and working-class families. Basically, if you didn't fit that suburban mold of the white middle-class nuclear unit, your reality simply wasn't televised. Which brings us to part 2, historical realities whited out. When we peel back that pristine media illusion, the actual historical data paints a vastly different picture. Despite rising real wages in the mid-century, 30% of American children lived in poverty. And African-American married couple families, they faced a staggering poverty rate of nearly 50%. That permanent female homemaker we always see on TV was really a class-based luxury. Women of color and working-class women have historically had dramatically higher rates of labor force participation out of pure necessity. Plus, historically, African-American families, Native American communities, and immigrant groups relied heavily on incredibly diverse, extended kinship networks just for survival, not isolated nuclear units. And this leads us to a massive sociological pivot point. If families aren't strictly the biological single breadwinner units we see on TV, if history actually shows us that family structures have always been incredibly diverse and economically driven, what actually binds a family together? Let's look at part 3, kinship as a social construct. Okay, this is the foundational sociological concept we really need to grasp here. Family structures are built by societal forces, not merely by biology. Sociologist Diana Gittins defines kinship as a method of demarcating obligations and responsibility between individuals and groups. It's an entirely social construct. And here is a truly fascinating historical fact for you. Up until the early 19th century, the English word family, which derives from the Latin familia, actually referred to everyone living under the authority of a household head. That frequently included servants, slaves, and boarders. It had absolutely nothing to do with blood relatedness. It was entirely about shared social obligation and co-residence. So the core takeaway here is that family is a highly variable social institution. It's shaped by cultural forces, historical context, and geography. It is absolutely not based on a mutable biological fact. For instance, anthropologists have long noted that among the Trobriand Islanders, a child's strongest legal and emotional bonds are historically with their maternal uncles, not their biological fathers. In their traditional culture, the social role of raising the child completely supersedes the biological genetics of fatherhood. That's a pretty profound paradigm shift, right? Moving on to part 4, Ferguson's 3 core components. So if biology isn't the baseline, what is? Well, to answer this, sociologists rely on Ferguson's theoretical framework. This is a major breakthrough because it argues that a functioning family, whether it's biological, adoptive, or entirely chosen, must fulfill 3 specific structural needs. Number 1, support its members. Number 2, bind the individual to a primary social group. And number 3, socialize the person. Let's unpack these components a bit to see how they really anchor human relationships. Support isn't just a vague feeling of affection, It's emotional, financial, and physical presence. It literally means showing up in a crisis. Then we have social group binding. This means your family connects you to larger societal networks, maybe a religious community, a political affiliation, or just a tight-knit neighborhood. And finally, socialization. This is the active process of teaching you the rules, expectations, and norms of the society you navigate every day. And the really important part, a group of close friends, a chosen family, can fulfill all 3 of these essential functions just as effectively, and sometimes even more effectively, than biological relatives. And finally, part 5, age, gender, and changing structures. If family functions are socially constructed, it makes total sense that the roles within them are too. Just look at how the media ideal contrasts with sociological reality. We're taught that breadwinning is inherently male, right? But historically, women and children in working-class families have always specialized in paid work just to survive. We're taught domestic care is inherently female, but in a lot of cultures, the eldest siblings or extended kin take over child rearing completely. And we usually assume childhood is this long period of dependency. But historically speaking, childhood was incredibly brief, and youth labor was an expected, absolutely vital contribution to the family economy. Even things we tend to consider deeply natural are actually shaped by culture. Diana Gentins argues that maternal instinct and strict gender divisions of labor are cultural symbols. They aren't universal biological rules. I mean, for hundreds of years in Europe, it was common practice for wealthy families to hand their infants over to wet nurses to be raised in the early years. In Tahiti, young women often give their first few children to parents or close kin for adoption without any stigma whatsoever. Allocating specific work or caregiving to one gender or age group is a societal choice made to fit economic and cultural needs. It's just not an immutable fact of nature. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? Well, sociology really frees us from viewing the family as some rigid biological mandate. Instead, we can see it as a vibrant, ever-changing institution. Families are complex structures interwoven by human needs, economic realities, and mutual obligations. That 1950s myth, it was really just one highly curated thread in a massive, colorful tapestry of human kinship. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to apply to your own life. Think about the people you consider your family right now. How has your own family been shaped by social constructs like geography, economic, and culture rather than just biology? And, looking back at Ferguson's framework, what are the actual obligations that bind you together today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the myths and keep exploring the fascinating realities of the social world around you.